host, sabrinasalvati. Doo-be-doo-be-doo. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doo-be-doo-be-doo. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, guys. Welcome back to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the JB and Sabby show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. I hope you had a great weekend. I actually had a pretty cool Sunday stream. I know it was Easter Sunday, but Kim Iverson came by. That was such a thrill. We had a great conversation. Later on this week, actually, Thursday evening, Marcel Dixon is coming back on with a big announcement. So don't miss that. We're probably going to do call in Thursday night because I'm pretty sure people are going to want to talk about that announcement and some of the stories that we're going to cover Thursday, but I do not want to give that away. Welcome back, guys. Let's go ahead and give shout outs to people in the chat. Shout out to Lawrence Johnson says first. All right. What's going on, fugitive? Fredo just lied to RFK Jr., helping his brother Andy, one of Trump's New York real estate attorneys, defend former Democrat Trump, who got Hiddle Beast parachuted into the New York Senate as Arkansas Klan. Interesting. Oh my God. Well, we have a lot to say about Chris Cuomo tonight. Shout out to Oxanoxia. Does this chat work? Yes, it does. Welcome. Shout out to CBC Voter says, happy Tuesday, Sabby Sabs. What's going on? Farha says, Fredo. I know they kill me with the jokes. Shout out to David. Sabby, I support flight attendants from the big three airlines and they need better pay. Corporate is corrupted and they won't pay them. I need to look into that story. Shout out to Ba says JLo supports the wrong men. Diddy and Biden, for instance, closing her eyes on their abuses. Is she an enabler or a groomer? Well, we're going to get into that JLo story tonight. Shout out to Cloudness for becoming a Sabby member. Give Cloudness a big whoop whoop in the house. Shout out to Miguel says peace. Greetings. Matthew says good call, Miguel. Shout out to Hannah G says Sabby love. Greetings, Notori. I saw Chris on PBD with a group of conservative guys. He says one thing on News Nation and something different in front of people. Yeah. We'll talk. We'll get into Chris tonight. It's an interesting discussion. Shout out to Lorez says, sup, Sabrina, Eric, Corey, and Sabby fam. Clyburn grilled, but not at his fish fry. More should resign or strike while there's still a genocide. Hope you had a good weekend. Smash the like, y'all. Thank you. Shout out to Dr. Darnell. Looking forward to doing call in on Zoom. It's more easy to use. It is easier. Yeah. Zoom is a lot easier. Also with Zoom, like I said, people don't have to wait in a queue to call in. Like you just click on the Zoom link and you're in the room. And if you want to speak, you just click on the emoji to raise your hand. It's going to be a lot easier, I think. Plus, I think a lot of people have already used Zoom at some point. Shout out to Team Orca says, hi, all going to start some laundry while waiting. Ooh, I need to do laundry. Thanks for the reminder there. Shout out to Ilhanner says, hi, Miguel. Greetings, P. Smith says, happy hump day. Been a crazy week and it's only Wednesday. Wednesday? Today's Tuesday. Where are you, P. Smith? Where are you located? You must be abroad. Shout out to Silver Surfer says, love, Sabby, peace, fellow commoners. Hope all are well. Shout out to, make sure I don't skip, Mastermind Hour. On my WTUs, I wrote for my profession. conscientious observer. And now I need the phone number of Wesley Snipes' tax attorney. Oh boy, don't mess with the tax man. Don't go there. Ay. Shout out to Mark says, Sabby. Shout out, Mark. What's going on? Randy says, good evening, Sabby family. Shout out to Casey, sends solidarity and fire. Greetings, Luz. I think it's more that Fredo has a right-wing extremist definition of what constitutes the left and portrays the less extreme right as the left. That's an interesting point. If you didn't have a chance to do so, make sure you answer that poll question. It's pinned to the live chat on YouTube. I still got to figure out how to do that for a Rumble. I don't think Rockfin has that option, to be honest with you. And I know Twitter doesn't have that option. So I'm sorry for those of you watching on Twitter. Shout out to Gig says JLo's block has been with many guys. Hee. You guys are already starting out with the jokes, man. Tim says Chris Cuomo is going wherever the money flows. That's why there is no real difference in either party. They're both corporate goons. Chris is the one who made sexual advances on Angela Rye. Oh, Chris. Shout out to Eric T. Red says time for Tuesday Night Live. And Greetings Zombie says, let's go. Shout out to Gamer says, hello. Greetings Dublin says, Sabby Sabs, like what's up Dublin. And shout out to Matthew says, I'm number 48. That is awesome. Let's go ahead and get into it, guys. Want to give a quick shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. You're keeping things alive around here. If you are interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate, Sabinators. There's also Sabsters in the mix. Shout out to the Sabbies as well. And of course, members. All of their names are listed here. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. Thank you guys so much for your support. I want to give a shout out to a new Sabby patron. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up to Najla Al-Hamazi. Najla Al-Hamazi. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Thank you so much and welcome. Welcome. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have to talk about this new information about Jenny from the block. Let's go ahead and share that thumbnail. Keep it rolling. Tonight, we are discussing Chris Cuomo is attacked. Chris looks pretty stunned in that picture there. He decided to express how he feels about people criticizing him in a long ass video. I watched this video and I said, Chris, you don't need to do all that. We'll get into that tonight. We're also going to discuss Jim Clyburn fails on Meet the Press. We'll get into that discussion and where we need to go from here in reference to this election coming up in November, what we can do on the outside. We're also going to discuss JLo may be in trouble, and this has to do with Diddy. What has Diddy done, or what has JLo done that actually has caused her to be pulled into Diddy's mess? Ay. Jenny from the block. And we're also going to discuss State Department member resigns. This is huge news. One of others that have come forward to push back against the Biden administration's actions in reference to this war in Gaza. And let's go ahead and dive right in, folks. Let's do it. I like that, Miguel. From In Living Color to movie scripts to JLo to Diddy's tricks. Oh, man, the jokes are coming all night, man. The jokes are coming all night. Let's get into this story about the State Department official, Anel. So earlier before, I think it's been maybe a month or so now, we actually had Craig Mockheiber on the show. He was a UN official that resigned from the UN because of the Biden administration's actions with the war in Gaza and also the way that the UN was choosing to handle that. So he's been very vocal and he's been on a number of shows to talk about that. And now we have Anel Shaline, who actually announced that she has resigned from the State Department, and she chose to do so publicly. Not only did she choose to do it publicly, but she chose to discuss it on mainstream media. So I'm actually surprised that they had her on MSNBC and they allowed her to say as much as she did. But we got to get into this tonight. And I'm going to explain to you how this plays into some of the events that actually happened over the weekend in reference to Gaza. She was on Read Out. Shout out to Case Study QB for this clip. Let's go ahead and dive right in.
As President Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu remain locked in a public rift over Gaza, deep divides exist within Biden's own government. We've seen government officials resign in protest over U.S. support for Israel's war, and congressional staff placing flowers outside the U.S. Capitol to draw attention to civilian casualties. Now there is another resignation from the State Department. For the past year, Anel Shaline worked for the office promoting human rights in the Middle East. She wrote for CNN that she believed strongly in the mission of that office, but, quote, such work has become almost impossible. Unable to serve an administration that enables such atrocities, I have decided to resign from my position at the Department of State. Whatever credibility the United States had as an advocate for human rights has almost entirely vanished since the war began. And joining
So first and foremost, let's give a big round of applause for Anel for being brave enough to speak out. This is not easy to do. And most people would choose to remain silent. So let's give her a round of applause. We got to admit here, this could be a career killer for her because she spoke out publicly about this. So this is a huge risk that she is taking here. Let's get in.
Now is Anel Shaline, former human rights staffer for the U.S. State Department. Ms. Shaline, thank you so much for being here. Let me ask you this question. You made a decision to not just resign quietly, but to do so publicly. Tell me why.
So initially, I was not planning to do so publicly. As you mentioned, I was only briefly at the State Department, just for a year, and I planned to resign quietly. But when I started to tell colleagues that I was planning to resign because of Gaza, they said, please speak for us. Many, many people are not in a position where they feel they could resign. They've spent their whole careers in government, whereas I was sort of transitioning, I'm coming into it with sort of a different position. And so I decided I would go public because so many people are so shocked and horrified by what's going on, and are trying to do what they can on the inside to change the policy. And so resigning and going public about it seemed to be one of the only options left.
Pause here for just a second. So what that tells you there, ladies and gentlemen, is that there are other State Department employees that feel the same way that she does, but they're not willing to, they're afraid, right? Again, this could be a career killer. So they actually, encouraged her to come forward about this publicly. So I think that speaks volumes. And it makes me wonder if we're going to hear from more state employees from the State Department come forward as well.
Having been at State, what about your experience there? What have you seen from the inside that you objected to so strongly that you felt you couldn't work there anymore?
In particular, it was that we are not upholding U.S. laws, that there are laws against providing weapons to governments that commit gross violations of human rights and that block U.S. humanitarian aid, that these laws are not being upheld. And I think this is not only having obviously a devastating effect on the people of Gaza, but this is also devastating for America, for this administration, which came in claiming to want to reestablish America's moral leadership in the world, claiming to uphold the rule of law, the liberal international order. I think for myself and for other colleagues who believe in the mission of the State Department and believe in the values that America claims to uphold, these decisions became untenable to stay with this administration.
Notice again, she stresses with this administration. So it's really interesting. She's not holding back here and holding the Biden administration accountable, which I wish more people would do. Notice that she also said the U.S. government is not upholding the law. So this is someone saying this on national television. Joy Reid has one of the most popular shows on MSNBC, I think, behind Rachel Maddow. So a lot of people saw this, and I think it's great that this message got out there, and it's really disturbing the fact that we're all just sitting here and that our government is not even upholding the law. Now, they want you to uphold the law. They want to tell you that you need to follow the rules. They want to tell you when it comes to protesting, you need to follow all the rules and you need to do it the right way, or the way that they tell you to do it. They want you to follow what the police tell you to do. They want you to stop resisting. They want you to give in. But when it comes to the government, they don't have to adhere to those laws. So we see more hypocrisy, ladies and gentlemen, right? We see people who have basically established that they are above the law. And that's dangerous for all of us in this country.
Did the changes in the Biden administration's position, including abstaining and allowing a UN resolution to go through, which did call for a ceasefire, and, having the ship docked off of Gaza, providing food, airdropping food, did those changes and shifts in the Biden administration's position impact your decision at all? And what do you make of them?
Well, I welcome these minor shifts. The overarching policy has not changed. The U.S. continues to fast track massive amounts of weapons to Israel, and they're not using American leverage to insist that aid get in through ground routes. A plane can carry 2 to 3 tons of aid, and a single truck can carry 20 tons. And there are hundreds of trucks waiting at the border to get food and medicine to these people. The pier that the administration is building is largely a PR stunt. They are now dealing with a lot more public pressure on this.
A PR stunt, and she's calling it out for what it is. That was a weird question for Joy to ask her, that if this pier that they're trying to build or whatever, again, I do think it's a PR stunt, if that actually influenced or would change her decision or whatever. Obviously it didn't, because she still resigned. So I don't even understand why Joy, I don't understand why Joy was asking that question, because obviously that did not have an impact, and it didn't make her want to continue to keep her position at the State Department.
But they could simply use their leverage and insist that Israel has to allow in adequate aid. In terms of the UN Security Council resolution, it is encouraging, but then the Biden administration came out immediately and said it was non-binding.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I hope that this is perhaps the beginning of more of a shift, but thus far, nothing has made a difference for the people of Gaza. They're still being bombed continually and starving.
My last question.
That's right. If obviously people are still starving, this pier has not been built, and the pier idea was, again, I agree with her, a PR stunt anyway. And then also they could have just done this the easier way, which is have that aid come in through the ground, which obviously the Biden administration has not been holding Netanyahu or the IDF accountable for preventing that aid from getting in the first place. It's absolutely ludicrous that anyone would think that this idea of building this pier or calling for, the ceasefire and then actively admitting that it's not binding, it's ludicrous that they would even believe that that is influencing people's decisions. And you're going to see how the American people feel about this conflict towards the end of this story.
A lot of controversy over the term genocide. Do you believe what's happening in Gaza is genocide?
I know that the term genocide is technical. It's highly specific to meet the definition, and so I'd rely on experts. But based on my understanding, I would say yes, that the Israeli government is trying to erase this population from this land in Gaza, but also the treatment of Palestinians in the West Bank. Unfortunately, this current Israeli government, this far right-wing government of Netanyahu, is engaged in actions that are really beyond the pale, that violate international humanitarian law, that violate the law of war. And furthermore, that there are Israelis whose hostages are inside Gaza, and the Israeli government is not prioritizing them. They're prioritizing continuing to drop the bombs.
I wish we had more time, but we are out of time. Anel Shalin, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, no, we have no more time. You got to go, because like she said, the Biden administration is still continuing to give the weapons to Israel and thus allowing Israel to continue the assault that is happening on Gaza. And that's what I want to continue calling it. And it goes a little bit further than that. There was an attack over the weekend at Al-Shifa Hospital. Over 400 people apparently have been injured there. I want you to hear what the State Department had to say about that. It's very telling here. They're trying to do everything that they can to run cover for the state of Israel. Now, this was actually tweeted by Andre Damon. Let me go ahead and play this video here from the State Department and also the press secretary. Listen to what they say here.
Do not believe that this attack was on the hospital. The attack was on the Hamas fighters.
Let me turn it up just a little bit because these people, I can't. You play,
Do
turn
not
up.
believe that this attack was on the hospital. The attack was on the Hamas fighters that are hiding. Do not believe that this attack was on the hospital. The attack was on the hospital. The attack was on the Hamas fighters that are hiding inside a hospital.
Pause. Out of all these attacks, have you heard of Israel capturing anyone from Hamas? Have they weeded out Hamas? No, they haven't. So you see, Anel had the courage to do what this guy does not. He doesn't have the courage to call it out for what it is. He wants to continue to keep his job, keep his career. But this is just blatant. It's blatant lies. You cannot continue to run cover for Israel.
Inside a hospital, some place that they should never be.
We also have to call out Hamas here. They are operating out of hospitals. That's what they're doing. They're embedding themselves in civilian population.
We don't know that we had no proof of that. They still have no proof of that. And if they're there, how come none of them were harmed? How come none of them have been captured? None of them have been injured. You know who has been captured, who has been injured? Their own hostages. You know, the 3 Israeli hostages that were killed by the IDF, not by Hamas. It's just, and if they really cared about the hostages, like I said before, think about something, folks. Them preventing to allow the humanitarian aid to get in, that affects the Israeli hostages too. What you think they just happen to have a food hidden somewhere, especially for them? No, that affects all of them, all of the people that are in Gaza. So if they really cared about those hostages like they said that they did, they wouldn't starve them out either. And then you got Miss Pierre here, the press secretary, again, running covers. You know, how is this any different from the lies that Sarah Huckabee Sanders told every press conference for Donald Trump? How is this any different? The press secretary's job is to protect the president's image at all costs. And that means lying to protect the president's image. So how is this any different? It isn't. The only difference is one is serving under the Democratic Party, one served under the Republican Party. But she's told just as many lies as Sarah Huckabee Sanders has. I just want people to see that both parties are doing this.
Hamas here, they're operating out of hospitals. That's what they're doing. They're embedding themselves in civilian population. This is what they're doing.
So that just gives Israel the right to just slaughter everybody. And I would say this to anyone who has a brain. Don't you think it's strange that we're not seeing 30,000 anymore? I've been saying for the longest time, I believe that number's at 50,000. All of those people that have been killed in Gaza, and Hamas is still there because they're not actively trying to weed out Hamas at all. I don't know how people like Corinne Pierre, I don't know how her and the other gentleman from the State Department, I don't know how they sleep at night. I really don't. And it gets worse because humanitarian workers have actually been killed. This happened over the weekend. Zami and Chef Ali's last video shows them cooking meals for Gaza's hungry at WC Kitchen. That's the organization they're part of. They were killed today by Israeli warplanes in Gaza in disregard of international law, echoing the daily killings of Palestinian civilians in Gaza over the past 177 days. These guys here were there to cook food.
Hey, this is Zomi and Chef Olivia. We're at the Diva'sDoodles kitchen, and we've got the mise en place. Tell us a little bit about it, Chef Ollie.
This is the mise en place to cook the rice. So we have all the spices for boil the water to be ready for the boiling water inside the rice. This is the stir fry. We put oil, we stir fry onions. We have the spices, and after we stir fry the rice, we add the water. The water is aromatized with these spices, this mix of spices. There is the black lemon, there is chili, there is 7 mixed spices, bay leaf, salt, pepper, and tomato paste.
Indeed. So this is the beautiful, fragrant, aromatic rice that will be served today from Diva'sDoodles kitchen. Thank you. Hey, this is Zomi and Chef Olivia. We're at the.
They are now gone. These people who were just there to provide humanitarian aid, to cook food for the people because Israel was blocking food from getting into Gaza. So they were there to help the people. These people are now, they were killed. And WC Kitchen here, they actually acknowledged that. So World Central Kitchen, we are aware of reports that members of the World Central Kitchen team have been killed in an IDF attack while working to support our humanitarian food delivery efforts in Gaza. This is a tragedy. Humanitarian aid workers and civilians should never be a target ever. And that is against international law. And Israel has been committing all types of war crimes. Now, Netanyahu has already issued some weak apology on Twitter. Oh, we're sorry. We were unaware. Were they? Were they unaware? Because I want to remind you, in November, Politico released this. The U.S. has sent Israel data on aid group locations to try to prevent strikes. This article was written in November. The Biden administration has been providing Israel with the location of humanitarian groups in Gaza for weeks to prevent strikes against their facilities. But Israel has continued to hit such sites. So the Biden administration is lying. The press secretary is lying. The State Department is lying. And they think you just can't go back on Google and pull these articles back up. They think people forgot. I didn't forget. I read a lot of articles. And I may not remember every single date, but I remember this one. So they knew exactly where the humanitarian organizations were located. This was intentional. They don't want the Palestinians to eat. They want them to starve. This is why they blocked the food from entering. And this is why they attacked the humanitarian workers. Now, when we talk about public support, I want to show you what is happening right now in reference to how Americans feel about this war. And you'll see a change. Shout out to Case Study QB for this. In November of 2023, 45% of Americans disapproved of Israel's action in Gaza. As of March 2024, that is now 55%. That is increased by 10%. The Biden administration is ignoring the will of the people. They're ignoring what the constituents are telling them. They're ignoring the protests. They're ignoring all of this noise because they decided a long time ago to get in bed with the Israeli lobby. They decided a long time ago to allow an organization like AIPAC to infiltrate, and yes, I mean infiltrate the government and to buy politicians. They allowed these things to happen. And when you have this bond with these lobbyists, they want something in return. I'm seeing politicians in DC defending Israel harder than they defend us. Those of us that are Americans, they're out there fighting and standing for Israel more than they fight for us. Now that should bother you. All of you should be livid about that They never go through this extent for us. They can rush and pass a bill immediately to give weapons to Israel, but they wouldn't even rush to increase the minimum wage for you in this country. And then when they finally voted on it, they voted against it. And that included Democrats, by the way. They wouldn't rush to do that. They don't even want to give everybody health care in this country, but they got money to give to Israel. So what Americans need to start asking, they need to contact their representatives in DC, and they need to start asking them, who are you working for? Are you working for your constituents, or are you working for Israel? Because that's exactly what's happening here, folks. And even in Israel, it has gotten to the point now where even in Jerusalem, people are protesting and calling for a ceasefire. Netanyahu's own people. Shout out to Case Study QB for this. Thousands of Israelis protest in Jerusalem for new elections and a ceasefire. The world is turning against Israel. Let's get into this here. Oh, I think I fast forwarded. There we go.
Let a UN ceasefire resolution move forward. Netanyahu is now facing major protests at home, tens of thousands taking to the streets in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. These are the pictures over the weekend. These protesters are calling for early elections and a ceasefire deal. Meantime, the U.S. delivered a new weapons package to Israel over the weekend, including more than 1,000 2,000-pound bombs. Let's get the very latest from Tel Aviv and NBC's Raf Sanchez. Raf,
pause here for a second. So notice how what they do, it was Easter weekend. So they knew a lot of people in this country probably weren't paying attention because they were celebrating Easter with their family. This is when they try to sneak legislation through, when they think that you're preoccupied, when we're not paying attention. Now, when I interviewed Rocano on this show, he had the audacity to tell me that people shouldn't protest in DC on the weekend because the representatives are not there. They're usually back home in their districts on the weekend, and then they come back to DC at the beginning of the week. You were in DC over the weekend to make sure you get these weapons to Israel, though. But when we asked you to show up to participate and protest for Medicare for all, for everyone to have health care in this country, all of a sudden it's we're not there on the weekend. You shouldn't be doing these protests on the weekend, but you can be there on the weekend to send weapons.
let's start on today's meeting. What can we expect to learn? And if the U.S. is delivering new weapons, does that undermine their efforts to restrain Netanyahu's offensive?
So, Anna, just starting on the meeting, as you said, it's going to be senior officials on both sides. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. We're expecting National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan from the American side, a member of the Israeli War Cabinet, Minister Ron Dermer, on the Israeli side, as well as Sullivan's counterpart, the Israeli National Security Advisor. And the topic of discussion is this very public disagreement between Israel and the U.S. on the way forward in Rafah, that city in southern Gaza where more than 1 million Palestinian civilians are sheltering. The Americans hoping to convince their Israeli counterparts that there is an alternative to an all-out ground invasion, something Netanyahu has signaled so far he is not open to. You mentioned that while the U.S. is calling for a ceasefire, it is also shipping some of these massive 2,000-pound bombs to the Israeli government. Now, that is a move that has been criticized worldwide by a number of Democrats. And part of the reason for that is human rights groups will tell you it is these enormous 2,000-pound bombs when they are used in densely populated places like.
Scoot past this because I don't want to get that footage there. So one thing that I was going to say is that notice he said they're calling for a ceasefire, but they're still sending weapons, right? Right. So essentially, they're not actually calling for a ceasefire. It's just, I mean, think about it this way. If I tell you to stop, drinking and driving, and I'm still giving you the keys to the car right after you've been drinking, am I really telling you to stop drinking and driving? No, I'm not. They are still providing Israel the tools that they need to remove the Palestinian people indefinitely. So they're not actually calling for a ceasefire. Remember what the State Department said. The State Department said it's not binding. All of a sudden, the U.S. government is above international law. And every other country out there in the world should be criticizing the U.S. government at this point in time. Because if it was any other government that was doing this, if it was Russia that was doing this, if it was China that was ignoring international law, the U.S. government and its Western allies would be livid. But all of a sudden, when the U.S. does it, it's okay. All these countries that are quiet, why are you so quiet? Why are you so silent, UK? Why are you so silent, Germany? Why are you so silent, Italy, Greece, the Netherlands? Why are you so silent when the United States ignores international law? But if it's Russia or China, all of a sudden, all hell has broken loose, and we need to do everything that we can to hold them accountable. The hypocrisy knows no bounds.
Talking about these big protests over the weekend. We saw the pictures with the just crowded streets. This is the biggest protest since October 7th. How is the prime minister viewed there domestically?
Well, Anna, he is struggling. The polls show that if there were an election today, he would lose that election. Israel's longest serving prime minister, those same polls showing a majority of Israelis would like there to be an election today. But just because people are out on the streets in big numbers, just because a majority of them would like a chance to vote right now, doesn't mean there are going to be new elections. Prime Minister Netanyahu does have a majority in the Israeli parliament, including members of the far right, including some centrist opposition parties who joined him after the start of the war. But there is trouble brewing for him potentially, especially over this question of whether or not ultra-Orthodox Jewish members of Israel's society should serve in the military, something that they haven't done previously, but that there are growing calls for them to do now as this war stretches on. I will say, Anna, Netanyahu throwing a little bit of political red meat to his base later on tonight when the Israeli parliament is expected to vote through a bill giving him the power to ban Al Jazeera and other foreign television stations.
You guys hear this? So he wants to try to ban Al Jazeera. If you're not doing anything wrong, Netanyahu, why would you have a problem with Al Jazeera reporting the news? It's because you don't want them to continue to show people the atrocities that Israel is committing. That's why. They want to control the information. They want to control the press. And the U.S. government is behind that as well. Don't get it twisted, because our government wants censorship just as bad. Just as bad. So this is where we are, folks. And we have to pay attention during these weeks where there's holidays. So what's the next holiday coming up? Everybody pay attention, because this is when they try to sneak aid through when Americans are distracted. So while everybody's out chasing, dyed eggs and looking for Easter eggs and sitting on the lap of a giant ass bunny, they're sending weapons to Israel, passing legislation, and Israel is going in and slaughtering more people. Just like during the Super Bowl. Let's go to some of the comments. Eric, we can go to part 2 for Tight VNC. Deneen says, Joy has committed to that blonde wig. You'll have to take it out of her cold dead hands. I don't know, Joy. Come on now. Come on, Joy. Thank you, Marvin. U.S. leadership role in world ends in chaos. D1 says, Sabs, greetings from the UK, England, North London. Amazing broadcast channel. Had to sub the other day. Thank you and welcome. Welcome to the newbies. Collage says, if nothing ever revealed the corruption of the government, this absolutely does. Yes, indeed. If you have not had a chance to do so, folks, go ahead and smash that like button. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Okay. Yeah. Oh, and Eric, don't forget about the banners. I think we're still on the first banner. Thanks. And speaking of corruption, there has been more information released in the Diddy case. Some of you know her as Jenny from the block. Don't be fooled by the rocks that she's got. But now Jennifer Lopez finds herself tangled into this Diddy debacle, and it doesn't have anything to do with anything that Jennifer has done recently, not even in the past 10 years. It has to do with an incident that she was involved in when she was still a girlfriend of Diddy, and that incident at the nightclub. So let's get into this conversation. And she's not the only one who is concerned at this point. Now, it seems the feds might be looking at JLo as well. Feds set to widen Diddy's sex probe over claims the rapper boasted about shooting people, bribing jurors, and using JLo as a gun mule. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you this story gets crazier and crazier as days go by. Almost 25 years ago, just after 2:30 a.m. on a cold winter night, 3 NYP detectives were called to Midtown North Precinct. Rap impresario Sean Combs, I don't know why they called him that, then known as Puffy, his girlfriend JLo, his bodyguard Anthony Wolf Jones, and rapper Jamal Shine Barrow had been arrested following a shooting inside a Times Square club that wounded 3 bystanders. Now, I don't know if everybody remembers this, but it was after this incident that JLo decided to part ways with Puffy. They were no longer an item. It goes on to say the cops found Lopez, then 30, cuffed in the cage. Combs was also in the station house of West 54th Street. His plans for a spectacular celebration of the new millennium a few days later temporarily on hold. So all of them were arrested after that incident. This is really taking me back, man. This is really taking me back. It goes on to say here, now the events of that night and the sensational trial that followed it in early 2001 are back in the spotlight. Here we go again. 2 law enforcement sources tell the Post that the infamous shooting and the trial could possibly be reinvestigated as part of a sweeping federal probe into Combs, now 54, and called Diddy, whose past includes more than one mysterious shooting. I can see if I can make this bigger because the font is really small. There we go. On Monday, Homeland Security agents swarmed Combs' home in LA and Miami in raids that law enforcement sources told the Post were prompted by sex trafficking allegations. They got eyes on him in Miami, and the feds are talking to witness after witness. That's coming from Michael, who is familiar with the case. He's a criminal defense attorney. They're corroborating everything they can, but everything past and present is on the table with Mr. Diddy right now. So just think about all the people. This was that club during that time, Inside Club New York on West 43rd Street, 20 minutes afterwards, after that event took place. The federal agents stormed into Diddy's house 1 month after Rodney, Little Rod Jones, filed an explosive lawsuit claiming that the music mogul repeatedly assaulted him from September 2022 to November 2023, while Jones was a producer and a videographer for the billionaire. Jones compared Combs to Jeffrey Epstein and accused the mogul of, we're not going to get into all that, but certain acts. So it goes on to say here, that's a timeline. His suit came less than 3 months after Diddy settled an explosive lawsuit alleging violence filed by his former girlfriend, Cassie, alleged that Diddy ran an Epstein-like operation, which involved assault, human trafficking, and blackmail with hidden cameras that captured high-profile names in entertainment, politics, sports, and other acts as well. And there's a picture of Diddy here. It goes on to say Jones alleged in his suit that Diddy was violent, threatened to eat his face, brandished guns, and most pointedly, was often bragging about bribing witnesses and jurors in the criminal case concerning the 1999 NYC nightclub shooting with Shine. So this is getting pretty deep because I told you before there have been a number of incidents that Diddy has been present for, but he was never injured and he just was never involved, apparently. He was present when Biggie was shot. He was present when Tupac was shot. He was never injured and he was never involved, apparently. He always seemed to walk away clean. Something I always noticed. And there was this incident in 1999 at the New York nightclub. He was also present for that. It was his friend Shine that actually went down, that ended up being held accountable and going to prison. We'll look at that in just a second. The shooting stemmed from an argument between Diddy and a Brooklyn thug named Matthew Allen, who was nicknamed Scar. But Diddy, his bodyguard, Anthony Jones, and Shine endured a 7-week trial in February and March of 2001, which ended with Diddy and Jones walking free, and Barrow, which is Shine, then 21, being convicted on assault and gun possession and sentenced to 10 years in prison. So again, this is another example of Diddy walking away clean and other people being held accountable, but he just happened to be there. Mystery still surrounds the Club New York shooting, especially for former NYPD detective Derek Parker, who left the so-called hip-hop cop squad at the NYPD and is now a private investigator. So let's go on here. That's actually Shine, by the way. Okay. There were signs at that point called Keep Puffy Free. Isn't this crazy? Free Puffy Mon. See how the fans come out and support, right? Diddy has been dogged for years by rumors that he made Shine, now known as Moses Michael Levi Barrow, and who is the opposition leader of the House of Representatives in Belize, take the fall for the incident. This would not surprise me. Keeping it real. The story was that Puff was flossing, which is what they call someone on the streets who's throwing money around and acting like a big shot. Scar felt disrespected because he felt he was as important as Puff, and his words were exchanged, and then bullets started flying. Now here's where JLo comes in. Shots were fired, and Lopez and Diddy fled the club in a Lincoln Navigator. Diddy's driver, Wardell Fenderson, later said he blew past several red lights as they careened down 43rd Street and onto 8th Avenue, weaving past 2 police cars. Shine busted off in the air, Fenderson quoted Lopez as saying before the cops pulled them over. Parker told the Post how in the precinct, her mother was yelling at JLo in Spanish, and she was really mad at Jennifer. I heard her say, I told you not to get involved with him. So don't get it twisted. JLo was from the Bronx, but JLo's parents, or at least her mother, did not want her interacting with Diddy and the peeps. Lopez was released from custody without being charged after 14 hours in jail. Her spokeswoman declined to comment to the Post, but sources in her camp made it clear that she was never charged in 1999. Now let's go on here because I want to go a little bit further down so we get to the judge part. This part right here, we're going into Jones. Jones, in his lawsuit, claims Diddy openly bragged about committing the shooting and bribing witnesses and jurors to secure his acquittal. Mr. Combs shared that he was responsible for the shooting in the nightclub in New York. He also alleged that Diddy bragged about using Lopez to smuggle the gun into the club. And that's where JLo fits in this equation. Because if that is true, that could be problematic for JLo. Now, people see JLo today. Yes, she's older, wiser, and different, but this was a different time. I remember these days. He shared that artist and Mr. Combs' girlfriend at the time, JLo, carried the gun into the club for him and passed him the gun after he got into an altercation with another individual. So they are saying that JLo actually gave him the gun. Now, why would she do that? if she didn't want him to use it. This is wild. This is wild. Eric said, Jenny from the cell block. He goes on to say here, let me go right here. Diddy, through attorneys, had denied Jones' allegations. His attorney called the federal raids a witch hunt and slammed the military level force use. Diddy was backed this week by Glenn Beck, who was working security at the club that night and is now a martial arts expert who works with Deadly Art of Survival. Said that just as the fight was brewing between Diddy and Scar, Shine ran out of the club and returned a few minutes later without being searched by security. And that's when the shooting began. Then right after we heard shots ring out, Shine ran out the side door of the club that was attached to a hotel. He came flying out the doors and was immediately arrested by two cops who were outside and had heard the shots inside. Okay. So it says here, Beck also disputed that Lopez could have been used as a gun mule and said, I remember how well she was dressed that night and she's very slim. She's not going to be hiding a gun in that outfit. But the 1999 shooting is not the only one likely to be re-examined by federal investigators. So it also goes on to say Jones also alleged that Diddy lied about his son, Justin Combs' role in a 2022 shooting at the Chalice recording studio in LA, in which a friend of Justin known as G was hit twice. Now, I want to get into the story a little bit more about JLo and what she could face here. But I just want to remind you, Shine was sentenced. It says Shine sentenced to 10 years in prison, right? So he did the time. And even back then, people wondered if he was taking the call or taking the fall for Diddy in some way, shape, or form. Now, let's get into what a lawyer would say about this incident, because I think it's important to hear the lawyer perspective. So let's hear what they had to say on Law and Crime about how she could be implicated and how this could affect her.
Brings us back to Jennifer Lopez, JLo, Jenny from the block, Diddy's girlfriend from 1999 to 2001. She's listed in the lawsuit in relation to a 1999 nightclub shooting in New York. Here's how it reads in the court docs. It states Diddy's, quote, RICO enterprise has existed for at least 20 years, dating back to the 1999 nightclub shooting in NYC, when Mr. Combs required his then girlfriend, Jennifer Lopez, to transport his illegal firearm into the NYC nightclub. To understand that allegation and break down JLo's entire relationship with Diddy, I spoke to former prosecutor Melba Pearson. When I ask you about P. Diddy and JLo, what do you think of with their relationship?
I think tumultuous. I think it couple of the late 90s, early aughts. And I definitely think, they were two music moguls. JLo was really coming into prominence at that time. Diddy was already a mogul at the top of his game in terms of R&B and hip hop. So, they were very much the couple of the time, the same way we look at, I guess Ben Affleck and JLo right now, even though I wouldn't call them the it couple at present, but they were definitely at the top of everybody's list in terms of events. Their pictures were everywhere. It was just kind of in the advent of social media. So there was just definitely a lot of press and buzz around their relationship at the time.
To understand their relationship, we have to head back to the late 90s when JLo was fresh off filming the hit movie Selena. At the time, she was working on her debut album to be called On the 6th. Diddy was hired to co-write and produce a song for the album called Feelin' So Good. The two started working together professionally, which quickly turned into something a bit more, and they started dating. The first time we saw them publicly was in September 1999 at the MTV Music Video Awards, where JLo was nominated for Best Female Video. Diddy was also nominated for Best New Artist in a Video, Best Pop Video, and Best Dance Video. It was the next year, though, that JLo broke the internet, even before that was a thing, with the green dress at the Grammys and her date was P. Diddy.
I think that Diddy added to her brand. I think the fact that she was dating a celeb and walking the red carpet. I mean, we all remember the green Versace dress, right? That she wore with Diddy to, I believe it was the Grammys or something along those lines. It's, a big award show.
JLo's legal troubles with Diddy date back to 1999, though. What Lil Rod outlined in his lawsuit, saying,
what was that green desert goddess? She looks considerably different. Well, this was 1999, but I see what you're saying. She does look different.
she carried Diddy's illegal weapon that was used in a nightclub shooting.
Apparently there's some sort of dispute broke out and a shooting occurred. Now, Lil Rod is alleging that JLo brought the firearm in her purse to the club and then handed it off to, either Diddy or Shine or whoever the person was that actually committed the actual threatening or shooting. And so, basically the allegations from Lil Rod were that Diddy, or Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, confessed to him that he was the one that did the shooting. Now, in a court of law, it played out a lot differently because back in 1999, all of them were arrested, including JLo, Diddy, and Shine. JLo's charges were dropped immediately, but both Diddy and Shine ended up proceeding to trial. And so Diddy was acquitted at trial. Shine was not. He ended up being convicted on weapons charges and reckless endangerment, and ended up going to prison as a result. So I could see Shine being a little upset right now, especially in light of the fact that there was evidence that may have possibly acquitted him. So I'm very curious to see what, legal avenues that Shine might be exploring, especially in the wake of this confession, or will he leave well enough alone and say, listen, I did my time. It's all ancient history. Let's just kind of move on with things. So that's going to be, I think, very interesting moving forward in terms.
I don't think Shine would risk saying anything at this point in time. I think Shine wants to keep his life. Okay. I think Shine wants to keep his life. We'll get to that in just a second about how a lot of these people who tend to want to speak out about Diddy just happen to die.
Of his confession or alleged confession and what may result from that.
According to reports, after the shooting, Diddy and JLo fled from the scene in an SUV and ran nearly a dozen red lights in an effort to evade cops. They were eventually arrested on a weapons possession charge. JLo was held in jail for about 12 hours before her charges were dropped. So JLo was arrested back then, charged, and those charges were then dropped. But now, 25 years later, we're having this bombshell allegation that she brought this illegal firearm and she was somewhat involved. So is it possible she faces charges, or could the statute of limitations get in the way?
The statute of limitations would have long run by now. This is, 25 years later. Usually in terms of statutes of limitations, you see 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, usually somewhere in that single digit range, right? The one charge that does not have a statute of limitations is that of murder. And that's not alleged to have happened here. So I don't see any way that she's going to face criminal liability as a result of her bringing a gun to the nightclub that night. Now, is there a possibility of maybe some civil action or something along those lines? Maybe, but I think that's tenuous at best. So I don't see any legal ramifications impacting JLo as a result of her being involved in this shooting, or allegedly being involved in this shooting back in.
Okay, so that's the part I think that's important to hear. She doesn't think that there's going to be any criminal charges towards JLo. She said there could be civil disputes, but also there's the reputation issue too that JLo was going to have to deal with, right? Like she's had to deal with this before in reference to when this event first happened. So there's that. And then she's also had to deal with the relationship reputations, like JLo and all these going from all these different guys and stuff like that. So she's had to deal with that. But once again, this could be a reputation killer for JLo. But it's not just JLo. It also turns out, and this just broke earlier today, Ashton Kutcher reportedly fears being drawn into investigation of longtime friend Diddy. Oh man, it's all coming out. This was reported, or I saw this earlier today. It says Kutcher, 46, and Diddy, 54, have hosted shows on MTV and have spoken highly of each other during their decades-old friendship. So they were friends. You know, all these people that are, listen, if you were friends with Diddy, run. If you were friends with Diddy, run. This is wild. I was doing Making the Band on MTV, and he was doing Punk'd. You guys remember that show? And I gave him a call one day and said, I heard you were going to punk me, and I just don't think that's a good idea. That was what Diddy was saying there. Kutcher smiled and interjected and said, I'm pretty sure that's not the way you said it. I don't think that's a good idea. Is that what you said? Ha, ha, ha. They laughed. Now, it goes on to say here, Kutcher has not publicly weighed in on the probe into Combs since the feds raided 2 of the rap mogul's homes last week. But a source reportedly claimed Monday that Kutcher and his wife, Mila Kunis, would stay quiet on Combs' legal troubles following the blow-up over the letters they wrote in support of Danny Masterson. So you guys remember when they wrote those letters supporting Danny Masterson? He was also accused of sexual assault at that point in time. And then to come to find out that they found him guilty, and people were like, why were you guys trying to defend this guy? Like, yeah, that was not a good look for Ashton and Mila. So this time they're deciding to remain quiet. There is no way in hell Ashton or Mila will be showing any public support for Diddy right now. Goes on to say, regardless of Ashton's long history with him, he has distanced himself from Diddy since ex-girlfriend Cassie's lawsuit, and even more so in the wake of the new ones. So it seems like Diddy hung out with a lot of different people, and obviously probably was close with some than others, right? So now it becomes a matter of, you know, people trying to think back to, was I with Diddy when this happened? Was I with Diddy when that happened? And now people are starting to wonder, you know, if they went to a Diddy party, will people start coming for them? Are the feds going to come for them? But this goes a little bit deeper, because I want to show you something that Jaguar Wright, now she has been trying to tell people what was happening in the music industry for a long time. And she had something to say about all these people that were close with Diddy. And every time they were about to come forward about something, they just happened to die. Listen to this. This is interesting. It makes you wonder. I mean, I'm not saying he did it, but I'm just saying.
Wright provided a unique viewpoint on Diddy's successes.
I was thinking to myself the other day, Uptown Records started with 5 people. Andre Harrell, Ali Shore, Heavy D, and Puffy. And Kim was the longest working employee because she was there from the very beginning. She was Andre's personal assistant. Kim's dead. Heavy D is dead. Andre Harrell is dead. The only 2 left are Puffy and Al, and Al almost.
You know, and listen to what happened to them before they died. That's the weird part.
Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
Heavy D was found dead, face down in the heart attack. Andre Harrell, heart attack. Kim died from pneumonia, but there's the first coroner's report that said that she died. It was ruled a homicide, and they found toxins in her body to prove that she had been poisoned. You know, they have poisons that create heart attack and pneumonia-like symptoms. And then right after that, Al had a meeting, and I was going to meet up with him because we were in Vegas. And then the next thing you know, you want to know what they all had in common, though? The survivors and the late of Uptown Records, they were all writing tell-all books. Andre was writing a book right before he died. Heavy D was working on a book before he died. Kim Porter was working on a book before she died, and Al B. Sure was working on the documentary of his life.
Weird, right? Very weird. Protect this woman. This woman came forward a long time ago, not just about Diddy, but about what was happening in the music industry. And I remember people were like, you're crazy. She's crazy, or whatever. But don't you think that's a little bit odd? All these people working on books, and then it just happened to. Yeah. Ronwell said, protect her at all cost. Very strange. It is very strange. Now, we still have to say allegedly, because right now we don't have actual proof, right? We don't have hardcore evidence. So we still have to say allegedly. But it does make you wonder. It really does. And that is suspicious. But JLo know what I know. JLo might want to start thinking about what happened that night when she was with Diddy, who at the time was known as Puffy or Puff Daddy. Interesting. Let's go to some of the comments here, guys. Yikes. Chris says, Jenny from the Glock. Gus, Diddy is the Jeffrey Epstein of the entertainment industry. Damn. Thank you. What in the world? Hollywood is a cesspool of corruption and deviancy. The Oracle says, looks like JLo done had some facial augmentation. I think it looks like she could have had something done. I don't know. I've noticed some of the women in Hollywood as they get older. I don't know what this deal is with like these cheek implants that they get. Like Jada Pinkett got them. Like, I don't think they realize it actually makes them look older, not younger when they get that done. Gilbert says, bruh, Il Rod sounds like he's the one who didn't know what he was signing up for. Yeah. JB says that seems Epstein-esque. Yeah, it's wild, man. It's a wild story. There's new information coming out about this. It seems like every week. But I'm pretty sure that JLo is probably like, holy shit, not this again. You know, how did we end up back here? Right? Interesting. All right, guys, if you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. We are moving on to the Clyburn story. Jim Clyburn actually was on Meet the Press this weekend. There was no holiday for them. Not those that Meet the Press. They actually still worked on Easter Sunday. And there's a number of questions that came about, what more so about Joe Biden's chances in 2024, but also this issue of Israel and Gaza. And I really do feel like Jim Clyburn just failed here in this interview. And we're going to talk about this, and then we're going to talk about how we can move forward and things that we can do and not just rely on politicians. Let's get started with this interview here with Meet the Press. Jim Clyburn never looks happy during these interviews, but I got to tell you, this is a doozy. Get ready for this.
News this week, that historic fundraiser that saw former presidents Obama and Clinton join President Biden, a show of force. They raised more than $25 million, obviously aimed at energizing the base. No doubt it likely did that. But my question for you, Congressman, do you expect to see those former presidents out on the campaign trail routinely? Will they be a common presence on the campaign trail?
I think so, but not to show force, but more to show unity of purpose, to show defense of democracy. That's what's going on here. 3 former presidents, three of whom have had their challenges, but every one of them stood for what is right in this country, and that is to protect this democracy.
Okay, the first thing that gave me pause was him using that term unity, right? And I told you guys I have moved beyond unity. Unity to me is like so 2012 and it's 2024. I'm not looking for unity. I'm looking for solidarity. And I think that's what's important. And if you look at this issue with Gaza, the Biden administration does not have solidarity with the Palestinian people. And that's what we should be focusing on, not no damn unity. That is so old school, right? Of course, Jim Clyburn will say that, oh, the unity, Obama and Clinton are out there to help Joe Biden, and we're trying to unify the country and unify the voters to get behind Joe Biden. You wouldn't even have to do all that if Joe Biden actually did a good job. The fact that you got to crawl back to the 1990s and pick up Bill Clinton's crazy ass. And then you also got to grab Barack Obama to help drag Joe Biden across the finish line. That shows you just how horrible Joe Biden has been as a president. One thing I will say about Donald Trump, you didn't see Donald Trump do this. Donald Trump didn't have to crawl back and get all these old people and say, come help me. Come help my reelection. No, he didn't win in 2020, but he didn't reach out to the Crypt Keepers and ask them to come and help him. He's like, no, I'm going to stand on my own. They know that Joe Biden can't do that. So they go back and they grab these dudes, these old fogies, right? So Clyburn to me is a part of what I refer to as the Black misleadership class. He's one of the faces that you'll see on mainstream media time and time again. They always go to him, right? Usually Maxine Waters, like they are still stuck in the old school days. Like they don't realize that the world around them has changed and has evolved, and people are demanding more and people want more. They are the ones that would look at you like you're crazy if you say disband NATO. They would say, what is wrong with you? We have to have NATO. No, we actually don't. They're the ones that would look at you, and he's done this before to his constituents when they've actually approached him in town halls and they said, you told us to support Joe Biden, but you're not doing anything for Black voters. He's the one that'll snap back at those people and say, get out of my face. What you complaining about? I'm getting tired of you coming up here. I'm tired of y'all confronting me. What do you want to end up with, Donald Trump? They're not used to people actually demanding something for their vote. They're used to the Black community, for the most part, just going along with the Democratic Party. And now things have changed. So I do refer to him as part of the Black misleadership class because I feel like Jim Clyburn has led the Black community off a cliff. And now it has gotten to the point where most of the people who are voting for Jim Clyburn and supporting him are white liberals, not Black ones. Jim Clyburn does have a challenger. He'll be here Thursday night, and he has a surprising announcement. I don't want to spoil it for you, but Clyburn got to go.
And putting themselves below the needs, the dreams, the aspirations of the American people. So what we saw in New York last Thursday was a show of unity and a show of defense of democracy. And that is what we need in this country at this particular juncture.
Well, Congressman, as you know, looming large over that event, including with some protesters, is the war in the Middle East. And in fact, a new Gallup poll finds that a majority of all Americans now oppose Israel's war in Gaza, and approval of Israel's actions have dropped from 50 to 36% since November. There were a number of interruptions at that fundraiser, and a growing number of Democrats are now calling this a genocide, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So, Congressman, my question for you, do you agree with Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez that what is happening is in fact a genocide?
Let me pause for just a second. We got to laugh. We got to have some moments here to laugh at all the craziness. Famo said he looks like a human Ninja Turtle in the face. Jesus Christ. I've never heard anybody say that before. Eric, is that the comment of the night? Are we making... We're going to star that one. That might be the comment of the night. I'm sorry.
Well, I have not analyzed it to that extent, but I tell you this.
The question that she was asking him is, do you consider this to be a genocide right now that's happening in Gaza? He responds like this.
I agree with Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez that what is happening is in fact a genocide.
Well, I have not analyzed it to that extent, but
he said he has not analyzed it to that extent. He don't even know. In other words, that means he hasn't been paying attention. He don't know. He just been showing up, smiling, rubbing elbows with the progressive Black caucus and the progressive caucus, right? Black caucus and the progressive caucus. He's just been rubbing elbows, getting ready to host another fish fry. He don't know. He's not even paying attention. He hasn't analyzed it to that extent, but you're voting to give Israel more weapons? Why are you in Congress? What are people paying you? Our tax dollars actually support their way of life. They get the privileges and the perks that they have because of our tax dollars. And everybody in Congress has health care. They have a better health care plan than you, I bet. But he don't even know. He just signing off on things, just voting for legislation. I ain't paying no attention to it. I don't know.
I'll tell you this. What is happening is wrong, and we need to make it right. And that's what President Biden is trying to do, trying to make it right. And I would say that that poll showed much more of a dissatisfaction with Netanyahu than with the people of Israel. We stand with the people of Israel.
Isn't Netanyahu one of the people of Israel? Okay. It is the Israeli government. He don't live there?
We do not like the fact that this country's policy is a two-state solution. And Netanyahu has undermined that two-state solution for as long as he's been in office. He sold his soul to the right-wingers in Israel in order to maintain power for himself.
Hold up. Let's make sure we're not mishearing things. Let's go back. Listen to this.
To that extent, but I tell you this, what is happening is wrong, and we need to make it right. And that's what President Biden is trying to do, trying to make it right. So
he tells you that what is happening is wrong and that Biden is trying to make it right. How are you trying to make it right if you're still giving Israel weapons? Why are you helping Israel fight this damn war? Right? So how are you trying to make it right? Now, he told you what's happening is wrong, but he also said he hasn't analyzed it to that extent in reference to whether or not it's a genocide. Then what's wrong about it? Ask him, folks. He told you that it is wrong. What's happening is wrong. What about it is wrong, Jim? You said you ain't analyzed it to the extent to call it a genocide, but you said what's happening is wrong. What is wrong, Jim? He did not prepare for this interview.
I would say that that poll showed much more of a dissatisfaction with Netanyahu than with the people of Israel. We stand with the people of Israel. We do not like the fact that this country's policy is a two-state solution. And Netanyahu...
That didn't make any sense. He said, we don't like the fact that this country's policy is a two-state solution. Israel's policy is not a two-state solution. So he actually debunks himself when he says Netanyahu doesn't want that. Yeah, so Israel's policy is not a two-state solution. There is no two-state solution. He doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to this issue. So that goes to show you he's really not well versed in this.
Who has undermined that two-state solution for as long as he's been in office. He sold his soul to the right-wingers in Israel in order to maintain power for himself, and those people are opposed to his two-state solution. Biden is for a two-state solution. Democrats are for a two-state solution. That is the only way for us to move forward. And so this drop in support has nothing to do with the people of Israel and everything to do with Netanyahu.
Congress. That's a damn lie. The IDF are the people of Israel, right? Netanyahu is one of the people of Israel, right? So what are you talking about? What you talking about, Jim? When we see the videos of people and we see the videos of Israelis, what they're doing, not just the Palestinian people, but the way they treat Christians in Israel. Who's kicking the Palestinians out their home in the West Bank? Who's doing this? Somebody from Germany? No, that's the Israeli people that are doing that. And it's not just the IDF, it's also the settlers. We've shown those videos on this channel multiple times before. What are you talking about, Jim? He's not good on this issue. Not good on this issue.
Do you think the U.S. is doing enough, though? It's just approved another order of shipments of munitions and weapons to Israel. Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen saying the Biden administration, quote, needs to use their leverage effectively and should receive these basic commitments before greenlighting more bombs for Gaza. Commitments to preserve civilian lives is what he's referencing. Should the U.S. be using its leverage and withholding those munition shipments?
Well, the leverage has to be used, and I think the president is using his leverage.
But is he using enough of it, Congressman? They just accused that, they just approved that due shipment of weapons.
So you see how she grilled him? I'm going to give her kudos here because I do think she's a little soft a lot of times on the politicians when they come on. But notice she studied. She did her research before this interview. Like they literally, I just showed you the story and I just showed you how they just approved another weapon sale this weekend. This interview happened on Easter Sunday. So he's sitting there telling you that Joe Biden is using leverage. No, he's not. He just gave them more weapons. Who prepped you for this interview, Jim? Who told you to go do this? Like you were not ready for this. You are not ready for this, Jim. So she called him out. I'll give her kudos to that for calling him out.
Well, the question is, what were the agreements made last year and the year before, and whether or not we are going to keep our word? We cannot go back on our word and expect for other people to keep theirs.
So now we got to keep the word that the deal that we made with Israel from last year, which would say we would still supply them the aid and the weapons. But you just said that Joe Biden is using his leverage when it comes to the weapons.
We have to keep our word. And so I have no idea what may be in these deals, what the president may be living up to. But the fact of the matter is we must not lose our integrity as a nation. And we've got to stand in support of Israel.
The integrity is already lost. The integrity is already lost as a nation. It just, what is this B1? B1 says a royal B1. I can't, this Ninja Turtle. I'll be back in 5 minutes. My blood is boiling. Oh my God. Everybody's calling him Ninja Turtle now. This is a mess.
Let me ask you about what's happening in South Carolina this week. A federal court ruled that the South Carolina has to use a congressional map in the upcoming elections that it called an unconstitutional racial gerrymander after the Supreme Court failed to weigh in on the case. ProPublica has a report that you actually worked with Republicans on this map to maintain a tighter grip on your own district by ensuring that 30,000 black voters would move from a neighboring swing district into your own. Was that the case?
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. As much as the Democratic Party likes to talk about the Republican Party gerrymandering and changing districts, Democratic Party does that too, as I've said before on this show. So again, here she is calling him out. I don't think Jim was ready for this. I think Jim thought this was just going to be any regular old interview. He can come in, say the same old lines that he always says, which is we have to have better messaging and that Joe Biden has been a phenomenal president. I don't think he expected to get this amount of pushback. Look at the look on her face. She's out for blood. She has the look on her face and she says, nah, Jim. We got some serious questions, son.
No, that's not the case at all. When someone picks up the phone and asks you, what are your suggestions as we're about to get these lines drawn. I offered my suggestions, and I certainly didn't ask my district to be turned in to a minority district, and that's what it is. People keep publishing that I.
Pause. See, he's getting nervous. So here he is telling you he asked his district to be turned in to a minority district. Remember what Marcel Dixon said the last time he was here? He said the majority of people that are voting for Jim Clyburn are white liberals, not the black liberals, right? A lot of the black voters are not supporting Jim Clyburn. So what you doing, Jim? What kind of trickery you got afoot? What you up to?
Every minority district. That is absolutely not true. Check the numbers. So when you hear people misrepresenting, and that's been going on throughout this whole nation for several years now, a conversation. Yes, I offered my suggestions. Did they follow my suggestions? Absolutely not. And so when you say you spoke to me and that there's an agreement, that is absolutely not true. And I told a young lady who came to me with that story, who happens to be from South Carolina, or at least she used to work here in South Carolina, she was looking to make a headline rather than to make any headway. And so I would say that I was not surprised at this. Remember, the court did the same thing up in North Carolina the last time around. Yeah. They allowed North Carolina to go forward with the gerrymandered district that were unfair. And so I was not surprised at this at all.
Let me ask you about.
She's like, yeah, let's get to the next question.
Congress, more broadly speaking, Congressman, a growing number of Democrats say they would protect Speaker Johnson from being ousted if he brings Ukraine aid to the floor. Do you think that's the case? And would you protect him if there was a move to oust him for bringing Ukraine aid to the floor?
Well, let me say, first of all, I stand in support of our leader, Hakeem Jeffries. He is in those meetings. He is doing the negotiations. If he were to call me and says, look, I would like to have your vote in support of Johnson, he's got it. If he
She didn't ask him about Hakeem Jeffries.
He says to me, otherwise, I'm going to follow his lead. So I'm not in those meetings, and I have no idea exactly what the result of those meetings may be, but I stand in firm support of the leadership of the party. And
I'm not in those meetings. I don't know what's really being discussed here, but I'm just going to go ahead and go along with what Democrat leadership tells me to do. This is the same problem that the squad ran into, right? Let's just follow his lead. You're not in the meetings, but you're just going to do what he tells you to do, not being aware of the outcome or who it could affect.
let me see if you mentioned South Carolina. I want to mention something about North Carolina. Come Thursday, the vice president is going to be back in North Carolina with $20 billion to fight climate change and to lower the cost of energy in North Carolina. And
see, he messed up, right? So it's like he already messed up with South Carolina, which is his state. So let's talk about what's going to happen in North Carolina. They say you don't live there. So now he's trying to slide in something else. Let's talk about what Joe Biden's going to do. Let's get the heat off of me right now. Typical politician move.
I might add, Joe Biden did not win North Carolina the last time around, but he is demonstrating once again that he's going to be a president of all the people, irrespective of whether or not they voted for him in the election.
Congressman, quickly before I let you go, I don't have to tell you we live in a very divided moment. This is Easter. What is your message about bipartisanship? Is it possible?
I sure hope it's possible. I know this. We are now calling Easter Resurrection Sunday. And I would hope that we can resurrect those things that have made this country great. I often said that this country is no need of being made great. We are great. We've all got to work together to make this country's greatness accessible and affordable for all of its citizens, be it education, energy, health care, whatever it is.
How are you going to talk about healthcare and you take one of the, like, you're one of the biggest, when it comes to taking money from big pharma? How are you going to talk about healthcare and you take the most money from big pharma in Congress? How are you going to talk about healthcare, Jim?
Those greatnesses must be made available to everybody, and we ought to do that on the bipartisan basis.
All right.
Yes, let's have the contest. I love the contest. I love campaigning. But when the campaign is over, let's work together and let's do what is necessary for this country to maintain its greatness. I have nothing against Republicans. My parents were Republicans. I worked very closely with the Republican governor of South Carolina because we want to make sure that energy, broadband, health care, education get to everybody. So that I would hope that we can, on a bipartisan basis, resurrect the goodnesses of the American people and maintain the greatness of these United States of America.
All right.
What greatness? Not great at this point in time. This was not a good interview for Jim Clyburn. I've seen him do better. But I don't think he was expecting her to push back the way that she did. So he's probably like, look, I don't know if I'm going to come on here next time. Lorez said, Sabby, they never change because they've never been held accountable for their corruption. That's a good point. Marvin says, Jim looks constipated. You guys are cracking me up tonight. Jim looks constipated. Marvin also, Sabby, do they got cornbread at the fish fry? That cornbread is dry. Okay. And I had to say it like that. It's dry. I do not like dry cornbread. Cornbread has to have some type of moisture, okay? It can't be soggy. We don't want no soggy cornbread, but we don't want no dry cornbread. You need a little bit of moisture in the middle, a little bit of crisp on top, but it's dry. It's dry. Tina says, P. Diddy has changed his name so many times. Red flag. Ooh, I never thought about that. That's a good point. Ozzy says she'll be fired soon. Deneen, he is an idiot. I always hear a banjo playing when I see him. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. I'm gonna try to get through this show. Thank you, with the love. It's really messed up to see Black Congress members co-signing on genocide. I'm done. I can't continue to vote for them. SMH. Yeah. You heard what Clyburn said. They followed the lead of the party, right? EXJW says, I'm currently in the Carolinas, and it's definitely Boule Blacks and the Dems versus the rest of us in the community, and we are done. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Willis. Mush mouth sellout Clyburn. Thank you, Derek. People want to know why Black people are choosing the couch. Look no further than Jim Clyburn and other people he is mentioning. Everything for everyone and everything else, not American descendants of slaves. Well said, Derek. It's true. It's true. I would say, Derek, go out and support the candidates that are running outside the duopoly that do have a reparations plan and are willing to talk about it, But I hear you. Let's take that comment on Rumble, that Rumble rant. Rumble. Thank you for the Rumble rant, Lainey Sunday. Hi, Sabs. Fellow Massachusetts residents here was thinking about what you said about Boston sending money to Israel. Could we do public records recs like FOIA to see how much Massachusetts state and any town, cities are sending them? We can do that, Lainey Sunday. I knew about the Boston one, but we can look into other areas here as well, because I'm pretty sure it's not just Boston. Thank you, Roger. Constipated. Give him the food. He looks like oatmeal. Oh, my God. Oh, man. We're moving on. We're moving on. But what can we do, right? So I just want to show you guys some of the things that we've been able to do and how you can help out other people, right? So these politicians, they're not trying to help They're not trying to help. But we actually started RBN chapters at Revolutionary Blackout Network in all our respective areas. We actually started this last year. We've already had a couple of events. So I actually have a Boston chapter here in Massachusetts. There's many people that have helped with that. We've had different types of events. And the goals that we have is things like building a community library. Rome is actually working on that in Detroit, Michigan. Diaper and baby supply giveaways, school supply giveaways. Nick has done that. Disability community outreach, feeding the poor and the unhoused, etc. Also, bill payment assistance, self-defense classes, remote webinars, all this kind of stuff, tutoring, citizen journalists. These are just some of the things that we do in all the different chapters. Boston, JB does Orlando chapter, Rome does Detroit chapter. Rome is probably the most active out of all of us. He spends more time on the ground. Nick does the Kansas City chapter, and CJ does the Long Beach, California chapter. And even when it comes to Boston, we've had a couple of events here that we've had. This is actually when Rome came to Boston and we did community outreach in Roxbury. So you'll see this was one of our events here. This was fun. And these are some of the people that volunteer with the RBN Boston chapter. And you can see we gave out food, we gave out supplies, even things like Band-Aids and things like that. Like these are things that people need, right? So Rome came, we set up a tent, distribute clothes, supplies and everything. And then of course, there's the RBN banner there. You'll see with all the 5 chapters. This was actually at the Marcus Garvey Recovery Center in Roxbury. So it was really nice of them. We also, of course, we're active at the protest. So this is when one of the Palestinian protests at Boston that I was at, I forget which one, I've gone to multiple ones. We participate in these events as well. We are about helping people within the community and calling for accountability. And so I think that when we talk about the things that these politicians are doing that really pisses us off, this is why I always pivot back to local actions, because when it comes to local organizing, there are things that you can do for your own community and not wait on these politicians. That's also where the ballot measures come in. That's where when we talk about the ballot initiatives that are going to be coming up this year for November, these are things that ballot initiative states are going to have on the ballot in November. They're actually passing progressive laws in the states, fam. It's not happening on the national level, but it is happening locally. And I think people need to pay more attention to that. Some of these things that we're asking Joe Biden to do and whack ass Jim Clyburn, we can get some of these things done ourselves within our communities. So always like to pivot back to that to let you know what you can do, right? Thank you, Kelly. Is Jim Clyburn who white people talk about when they say they have black friends? Damn. Maybe, Kelly. Maybe, Kelly. All right, guys, if you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we're moving on to our final story here, which is Chris Cuomo. Ay. So apparently some of Chris Cuomo's, I guess, fans or whatever are not too happy with him. I don't think it's just about him joining a PBD podcast. Some of this started when he started working at News Nation, which is also owned by Nexstar. So News Nation and The Hill Rising, they're owned by the same company. I think people have seen a shift in his politics, and some people are angry that he's having conversations with people that are on the right. But you do have to remember that he was working for CNN, and CNN had one narrative and perspective at that point in time, which was the liberal narrative, right? Now they started to change a little bit after Chris was fired, but that was the perspective. That's what he was hired to do. But some of the fans feel like they were duped. So Chris decided to make this video. I don't know if he's at a kitchen table. I don't know if Chris looked like he just woke up when he made this video, because I don't know if it looked like he didn't brush his hair. I don't know what's happening, but he made this video explaining why he's doing what he's doing. And he said, here is the deal. So let's get, oh my God. Let's get into it.
Hey, good morning. How's it going for you? A little delayed over here. Kids don't want to go to school. You know how it is. Having some morning coffee or your morning dose, a little mushroom drink maybe. How about a little wake the fuck up with your morning brew? Ooh, that's coarse language. Ooh, that's crass. Ooh, that's vulgar. Yeah, so's our reality. And all of this dudgeon that I've become some kind of radical righty and I've lost the narrative and I don't get the plot and I don't see how pernicious and how bad and how everything. Your way isn't working. Your way isn't working.
He looks like he was about to pull his hair out. Like Chris looked like he didn't even try. He looked like he didn't like brush his hair or anything. Like he looked like he literally, Chris looks like he rolled up out of the bed and was like, "I'll make this damn video." Oh no. Green says that is some bedhead and morning morning breath. Did he wash his face? Oh my God. You guys are cracking me up tonight.
Do you care? Or do you just want advantage? Or you just exactly like what you oppose? You have to start thinking about this. I am not anti anyone, okay? It doesn't serve my interest. It's not how I work, okay? I have not changed. Do you understand? CNN was not some toxic groupthink place when I was there, nor do I suspect it would be now. You may have feelings about that place that you then project onto me, and we were at a different time in terms of our national dialogue when Trump was first getting into it that I think deserved and warranted and needed a muscularity of response to his unprecedented level of bullshit and lying and aggression towards everything that didn't suit his purposes. And he has turned out to be exactly what was imagined about him. Now, that doesn't end the analysis. Trump being a bad example of what we should be creating as leaders doesn't end the analysis, okay? Because what the left wants, which is to isolate anybody who believes anything about him or his policies or his rationales, is not working. Now you'll say, "Oh no, that's not what it is. But these people lied about the election." And look, yes, but you really believe that you can just cut off a big chunk of half of the country and get to a better place? You don't think conversation with people, you don't think there is a large population of people who are open to critical thought?
So first of all, he refers to this as the left. The Democratic Party is not left. Okay, so let's go ahead and debunk that. The left is what you would call like progressive or progressivism, you know, like the social, like Democrats, like that's left. The Democratic Party is not left. It is center right wing. So he's not a part of mainstream media anymore, but he can, well, he's not a part of CNN anymore. News Nation is still considered mainstream media because they're owned by Nexstar, but he's not a part of CNN anymore. And he still can't get left right. He still doesn't get that right.
Except on your side of the aisle, the defund the police side of, "Oh, but that was just a mistake. It was just a moment in time and it was an emotional reaction to a really bad situation." Yeah. Why don't you give the benefit of that explanation to some who were susceptible to that bullshit that they were believing about the last election? And look, let's be honest, none of our elections are perfect. There are always issues. Are they using that reality to advantage right now? Of course. Are they doing anything to make any of it better? No. Is there a real problem here in terms of who wants to create more access to ballots? Yeah, of course. We've been having this fight a long time. Remember which side it was that didn't want people to be able to register for vote when they get their driver's license? Why not? Because how big the electorate is an issue of advantage. Okay, that's where this nonsense about the great replacement theory comes from. Now look, have you guys set yourself up for the great replacement theory on the left? Yeah, because you're not doing anything on the border. If Joe Biden loses this election, there's no way that the southern border isn't a big part of the calculus.
The problem is, Chris, when you were on CNN, you would have never uttered this rhetoric. The problem is that if Chris Cuomo was still on CNN right now, he would not be saying what he is right now. All these people coming out of the woodwork, Chris Cuomo, Don Lemon, all of a sudden now they say they identify more with people that are on the right or whatever. The problem is you guys lied to people in their living rooms for years. You guys read off of teleprompters and you lied for years. You lied about the progressives. You lied about those of us that were supporting Bernie Sanders. You lied about what Medicare for all actually meant. You've been lying for years. So why should people believe what you're saying now? That's the problem. Now, all of a sudden, I'm supposed to believe all of you that quit CNN are all of a sudden down with you're down with the independent style and I totally get what's happening out there. Nah, bruh, you lied for years to people. Never forget that. Now all of a sudden I got my podcast and I'm talking to people on both sides of the aisle. Don't get it twisted. People like Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon, they're not edgy. They're pretending like they're edgy, but they're not. Basically, what they're doing is they're still maintaining the status quo and they're asking for politics in the center. They're like a Joe Manchin. They come out here and make it seem like they're all like, I have woken up now all of a sudden. I'm no longer attached to CNN. But the reality is they still want to maintain the status quo. Have you seen Chris Cuomo interview anyone on the left? And I mean the real left, not the Democratic Party left. Have you seen him interview anyone that calls theirself progressive? Even on his podcast, you can check both. Have you? Has he interviewed anyone who's a socialist, a communist, a Marxist? No. What you have is a Chris Cuomo who is basically siding with the Joe Manchin style of politics where they don't want you to go too far to the left and they don't want you to go too far to the right. They want you to stay in the center and maintain the status quo. Brush your hair, Chris.
Jimmy Carville, whom, as you know, I have on the show and I love and I respect very much. His line, it's the economy, stupid. Not this time. Not this time. It is, you got to keep them safe, stupid. And not using executive action on the border. Look, I'm not saying there wouldn't be legal challenges. I'm not saying that it's a perfect solution. I'm saying you got to show the people that you're doing something. I don't get it, but that's not my problem. My problem is the lack of appetite for anything but what advantages your side. Ronna McDaniel is not a fair broker. She is not right about what she says about the last election, even though she has modified it a little bit. But first of all, you really think NBC was the only outfit that wanted to hire her? And the idea, look, it's a little bit of an insidery thing, the idea that these people are saying they won't come on my show. It's not your show. It's NBC's show. It's MSNBC's show. You're an employee, okay? You don't get to decide these things, or you shouldn't. Anyway, I've never been able to. And you shouldn't just favor a side. And look, I made the point about Joe and Mika, not because I don't like them or I'm jealous of them. That's nonsense. I mean, they were responsible for a really big leap in my career. When Zucker started the CNN morning show with me and eventually Allison Camerata and the rest of the team, we beat them twice, which was a huge bar of success for CNN. And we did it despite the fact that they had Trump on like he was another host of that show. There was literally video of them saying, what are we going to ask? What are we going to do in the next block? Oh, yeah, but they didn't know then that he was the kind of person. Yes, they did. He's always been the same person. When it worked for them, they played with the fire of his extremism. They laughed right along with it. Oh, but they didn't know that when he became president, he would. Yeah, I don't know. They can explain that. But I'm just saying, for them to say now that they're disgusted that someone is entertaining somebody with such wild notions doesn't work for me. Doesn't mean that I think they're bad people, because I don't. Doesn't mean that I wish anything ill for them, because I don't. And they can come at me with whatever they want. That doesn't matter. It's not going to change my opinion, and it's not going to make them my enemy.
Let me tell you how he full of it, okay? You guys know, I saw there was a podcast. Max Blumenthal was on another guy's podcast where actually he was supposed to, I guess, have a discussion with Chris Cuomo about Gaza. Then all of a sudden it sounds like Chris Cuomo backed out and said he can't make any appearances on other podcasts. But we've seen him on other podcasts, okay? You know, Chris, if you don't want to do it, you just say you don't want to do it. Don't come up with the stupid lies. Like, people kill me with this, like, oh, well, actually, I might have something that day, or, oh, it's against my contract. I can't appear on other podcasts. Then we see your ass on another fucking podcast, okay? So Chris is full of it. Chris is trying to make it seem like he's willing to have conversations with people on both sides, right? But even that has limitations for Chris. Because obviously he's scared of Max Blumenthal. Everybody running from Max. If it's not RFK, it's Chris Cuomo. Everybody running from Max. So it's just like, no, you're not willing to have conversations with any and everybody. You're willing to have conversations with people that still want to maintain the status quo for the most part, but will still be a big enough name that will get you views and clicks, bruh. Come on, man. Come on.
It's not what it's about. That's simple. It's silly. It's reductive. But what do you think happens if you keep only catering to people who agree with you? How do we get past this divide? Are you just waiting for everyone who doesn't agree with you to have a eureka moment or to die? I mean, what do you expect? Now, as you know, if you pay any attention to me at all, I believe this is the only place we could be given the two-party culture. The two-party culture is naturally zero-sum. It is naturally going to lead you to a battle to the bottom. It is naturally about I win by you losing, and making you lose is way more effective than spending my time trying to prove why I'm better.
Then why isn't Chris Cuomo pushing third parties? Why isn't Chris Cuomo advocating for third parties and independent candidates? And people say, yes, he's interviewed RFK Jr. Yeah, but it's not like he was, it's not like he was trying to, push RFK Jr. Why is he trying to advocate for third? You got a large platform, Chris. If you have a problem with the two-party system, why aren't you trying to advocate for that? Chris Cuomo is still telling people, oh, but we might get Trump. You left CNN, but not that far removed from it.
These are all realities, okay? Nobody wants to change the system, but the other side is the worst. And you know what? You're probably right. I'm not saying the two parties are equal. I'm saying that the game they're playing is terrible. So it doesn't.
He says no one wants to change the system. That's not true. People do want to change the system. A lot of us want to change the system. Okay? Activists want to change the system.
It doesn't really matter that the other side is worse than your side or vice versa. Have Ronna McDaniel on. Have the truth put to her. Have her have to accept it, or have her show that she can't deal with the truth, if that's the case, if that comes to pass. That may move the needle. That may move the needle to the extent anybody who's watching your outlet, which with MSNBC, I'm not so sure, who are open-minded, critical thinkers. That's the whole thing we're trying to build at News Nation. Oh, you guys are just in the middle. In the middle of what? Nobody wants to be in the middle of anything. Let me tell you something. As a guy who's made a lot of bad choices about being around aggressive situations, you know what happened?
You've made a lot of bad choices, period. Remember when Chris Cuomo told that guy that he was going to throw him down the stairs? There was that. There's the sexual harassment.
When you're in the middle of any aggressive situation, you wind up getting hit probably by both sides. And it's not about being in the middle. It's about getting past the left and right and getting to reasonable. It's about doing and remembering and restoring what we do in every other facet of our fucking lives except in our politics, which is to hear people out, to not demonize them when they disagree, to try to find common ground. And let me tell you something. The fringes hate when we talk to each other. Now, is that really true? No, I'm exaggerating it. But it certainly doesn't serve their convenience or their interests to have us talking to each other, to realize that we're not the evil that they want us to believe so that we can just subscribe to one set of notions about everything.
But if you're willing to talk to anybody, then why aren't you talking to people who are part of the fringes that you refer to? Like I told you, he wants to be in the center.
Look where it's gotten us. They literally say out loud they're not going to work on the border because the problem works better. We have an administration. I don't think the issue is that Biden is brain dead. I think it's that he's not defending his policies the way he needs to win, and he's not taking action on the southern border, which is just crazy. I don't understand it. I wish they could explain it to people, because it is clearly the defining domestic issue. And it's going to be even more so now with ISIS acting up.
You don't understand it, Chris, because you haven't spoken to anyone that has a Marxist perspective, and anyone with a Marxist perspective would explain to you that this is about the workers, right? So you haven't spoken to those people. You haven't spoken to anyone that can explain to you how the U.S. involvement in foreign policy in reference to those countries has actually decimated those countries to the point that the people have no choice but to leave and to migrate. And this isn't the end of this. We will continue to see more migration as long as these wars abroad continue, and as long as the U.S. government continues to steal resources from other countries and demolish these countries. You haven't spoken to those people. The best person you could have spoken to on that topic was Max Blumenthal, but you backed out. You ran away. You ran away and said, I'm not allowed to do podcasts because of my new contract.
More of a national security issue. Even if it isn't as important as it seems, it's going to be made that. And not having conversation with both sides is going to exacerbate all these things, which it has done with every one of our problems. So, look, you can be upset at me, that's easy. You can be upset at anything, that's easy. But you have to look at the reality and see that it's not working. The siloed thinking, the other side is crazy, and both sides do it. It's not working. You have to try to have conversations with the people you disagree with. Oh, yeah, but they're just crazy and they're just spouting lies. Yeah, and they think that you're a bunch of psychos who don't understand what normal is anymore. Now, I don't believe either of these things. There's some of you on each side that do have some kooky notions that have taken you too far. That's why you should stay on the fringe where you belong and not be dominating our conversation or our process.
So you see how he actually exposes himself here? He's telling you in this conversation that you need to talk to people that disagree with you. But even with that, he's only willing to go so far. He doesn't want to talk to people that he considers to be on the fringe and says those people are crazy. He wants to maintain some type of normalcy. My question is, define normal. And normal according to who? Who tells us what is normal? Who dictates that? And are we thinking for ourselves, or are we actually just following some type of groupthink? Are we letting the government tell us how to think, how to feel, what we should believe? We have to start asking these questions. So Chris contradicts his own self here.
Now, why has that happened? Why are these fringes so magnified? For all of you out there who are like this every morning. What the hell are these people talking about? What are they so angry about? Yeah, I know. Here's the good news. You're the plurality of this country. There are more of you than of anything else, okay? Now, you put them together with a few others that get caught up in the whole parade of poppycock, and yeah, they're the majority, but you have a huge chunk of people, over 40%, are like, I don't want to be part of these parties. I don't understand what's going on. That's what News Nation's for. We're not, I'm not soft on anything. It's about testing everything, talking to everybody. Even if I disagree with like 90% of what's coming out of somebody's mouth, there's still going to be a common concern. That was the point of the Tucker Carlson conversation.
Dude, you spent years smearing third-party candidates. You smeared people like Jill Stein. You're saying all of these people that are percentage that don't like either one of the parties get together and build something together, whatever. He's saying, like, get together. There's more of you. Yeah, but you spent years smearing third parties and actually hurting and damaging any major third party effort we could have had in this country while you were at CNN. You and your colleagues, bruh. Okay. Now all of a sudden you got this newfound wisdom. They kill me with this. Chris Cuomo, Don Lemon, Tucker too. All of a sudden, oh my God, I left the mainstream media. I have seen the light. Get out of here, son. Get out of here. There were people doing independent media for years. And I don't even mean me. I started this show in 2021. So I'm not including myself. There were people doing independent media for years that your network wouldn't even allow to come on because they were to the left of the Democratic Party. So what are you talking about? Years. Now all of a sudden you have seen the light. All of you. Throw Mehdi Hassan in that category too. All of a sudden all you guys have woken up. You had to get fired to wake up. None of these people left willingly. They were fired.
Bill O'Reilly, having all these people on from the right, from the left, Cornel West, I have these people on because even though their thoughts may be too far in a particular direction of what needs to happen, what underlies it is a concern that is common to your side and their side. And it needs to be addressed. And it isn't right now because the distraction of the division is enough. We've gotten to a place where it's enough for you to just say the other side is batshit crazy, protect me, and you don't have to do anything else with the power I'm giving you. That's really crazy. Got magnified minorities, got a press who loves it, the parties who play it to advantage. Inaction is the new action, and it's not working for anybody but the established power structures. I say more voices. I say no censorship. I say you can figure out what ideas work for you and what don't. And it's the job of people like me to test those ideas. Have Ronna McDaniel on and test her ass and expose what she can't handle, see where she moves, and that may move the needle with people who are inclined to think the left is batshit crazy and that they have to have an affinity and an attachment to the fringe on the other side. But you know what? What's right is right, and she can't defend this. This doesn't make any sense, and it may move the needle.
You won't even sit down and talk with Max Blumenthal, who's an investigative journalist. How are you going to tell MSNBC or NBC that they should talk to Ronna, and you won't even sit down and talk to Max Blumenthal? Get out of here, Chris. You're not serious. You're not serious with us. No. We'll play a little bit more. And then there was a response video to this.
And you may understand why every white person who's got fears about where their place is in society now and where change may be something they're in favor of for more equality, but it seems to be done with some sense of punishment towards them and their kids and their ideas about what's right and wrong and normal.
Again, normal according to who? Define normal. Also, we will never have true equality in this country as long as the billionaires are still exploiting the workers. As long as you continue to have worker exploitation, and billionaires do not become billionaires because they were good people and they worked hard. They become billionaires because they worked other people hard. That includes Taylor Swift and Beyonce too. And some of you like Taylor Swift and some of you like Beyonce, but they did not become billionaires because they treated their workers well. It is just the reality of the situation. Some of those workers could be also workers overseas that are paid very cheaply. But as long as we have exploitation of the workers, we will never truly have equality in this country. So you should be calling for that, Chris. You should be calling out the billionaires. You should be calling out the top 0.01% if you're talking about some serious equality, but you're not.
Why that's real too. And while you may not agree with their reasoning or think that they're exaggerating this or too bad, at least you'll hear it. And you'll see that they're not so different from you in a lot of ways. That's what we have to get back to. I know this is the solution. That's a weird stain. I know that.
What was that on his shirt? Someone pointed it out in the chat, I think. What is that? Wait, let's see if it comes up again.
Where their place is in society now and where change may be something they're in favor of for more equality, but it seems to be done with some sense of punishment towards them and their kids and their ideas about what's right and wrong and normal. Why that's real too. And while you may not agree with their reasoning or think that they're exaggerating this or too bad, at least you'll hear it. And you'll see that they're not so different from you in a lot of ways. That's what we have to get back to. I know this is the solution. That's so weird.
What is that? Someone pointed it out. I don't know what that is on the shirt. Is that maybe it's like a coffee stain or something like that, right? No, maybe not. Robert said he's trying to look like a regular guy. Yeah, that's what it seems like too. Really interesting. William said he slept in that shirt. You guys are bad tonight. David said he slept in that shirt and drooled. Yeah, I don't know what's happening there, but
I know that's the situation. I know that conversation is the cure. I know that talking to each other will make a difference. I know it's wrong to want siloed thinking. Look where it's gotten us. What else do you need to know? So you can come after me for saying it. It's not going to stop me. Okay? The days of me being cowed by how many nasty comments or headlines or people in the media that play with the flow of whoever's being gone after in a soulless fashion, they do what they want to do. My days of worrying about anybody else's judgment but my own are over, and so should yours.
Chris, please, like, aren't you like a millionaire? It's so funny when I hear these rich people like whine and complain. Like, aren't you like a millionaire? You, Don Lemon, aren't you guys all rich and shit? So someone did respond to Chris. Her name is Blakely. I think you may have seen her on Katie Halper's show. She said, "Here's the deal, Chris." So she had some things to.
All of this dudgeon that I've become some kind of radical righty and I've lost the narrative and I don't get the plot and I don't see how pernicious and how bad and how everything.
No, Chris, people are giving you shit because you're insulting their intelligence. Most people who pay attention to politics understand that this whole I'm not left, I'm not right, I'm in the center, I'm just looking for truth, Joe Manchin, third way, James Carville, no labels fucking shit, is dated, and people understand that that is just an excuse to not talk about the actual underlying corruption of our political system. Because it's a lot easier to just go, oh no, it's not about Democrats or Republicans, it's about being an independent, while conveniently ignoring the fact that dark money groups, super PACs, the buying of our judiciary, the corruption of our Supreme Court, and all the creative ways that corporations and dark money groups and billionaires buy our elections is actually nothing to see here. It's just differences among colleagues. No one is mad at you or giving you shit because you talk to Republicans. I agree that people should be talking to each other and they shouldn't be picking and choosing who's bad to talk to and who's good to talk to, because that's how polarization continues to fester. But for you to pretend that your entire critique is on our two-party system, which is in fact corrupt and problematic, while simultaneously ignoring the influence that money has on our politics and the fact that lobbying groups and corporations can just buy politicians and then they will legislate on their behalf, is insulting to your own viewers, and people understand what you're doing. So please, can we dispense with this you acting like you're being really brave by doing the both sides tap dance? Access journalism is nothing new, Playboy, and we know that you guys make your decisions on what you will say and what you won't say based on whether or not you'll get another appearance. If you want to do power ass kissing and false equivalencies, that's fine, that's your choice, but don't ask us to think you're brave for it.
Well said. Well said, Blakely. She did the damn thing. Eric, let's bring up the poll results. What did you guys think in reference to Chris Cuomo? Is he giving attention, or is he talking to people that are on the left? I mean, the true left. I'm not talking about the Democratic Party left. Let's see the results here. 1,102 votes. Do you believe Chris Cuomo is ignoring the left? 49% said yes, 15% said no, and 37% said I'm not sure. Interesting results there, guys. Ding, ding, ding. I love to do a poll. Let's go to some of the comments here. Thank you for the super chat, Ronwell. Off topic, but thanks for wishing me happy birthday last Thursday. You are welcome. What is up? Roger says New York Sabby. That will happen on Thursday. Thank you. D Squared says, Sabby, would you consider doing a segment on HBCUs and how it's being handled by Republicans and Dems, especially recent developments in Tennessee? Yes. JB and I did a segment about that not too long ago, actually, where it was actually, not too long ago, where it was actually, HBCU was actually giving free tuition to Ukrainian refugees. We were talking about that, but yeah. The World Aspire says, speaking from his multi-million-dollar house, right? Hello. Blunts and Otter said he did interview Jackson Hinkle, a self-admitted communist. Jackson bounced around. 1 minute he conservative, 1 minute MAGA communist, 1 minute this, and that. I've watched him bounce from different thing to thing, whatever is going to be popular and trendy at that point in time. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. David said, I can understand why these people rely on teleprompters. Clay says he did interview Jackson Hinkle. However, he cut his comments short, and he was really vague when Jackson directed questions to him regarding the obvious genocide on Gaza. Yeah, and also he's not left anymore either. That's another thing. Max says Sabrina Salvati is correct as how Chris Cuomo is consistent, blatant, bold-faced, pathological liar. Thank you, all one same. He should be sat down and made to watch every RBN video. Thank you, Marvin. Sab, would you consider Cuomo as a co-host? No. He'd really pull his hair out then. Thank you, Nas. Everybody hates Chris. Everybody hates Chris. Nah, we don't hate people, but it is a something. Yeah. So other than that, guys, I don't know why it shows up this way. I think I'm going to take it off of Type VNC. I do have, my website is up and going, and I haven't had a chance to show you it yet. So I do want to go ahead and just show it to you really quick. I'm just going to actually share my screen to do this because the video part doesn't show with the Type VNC. So we'll go ahead and just share. There it is, son. Yeah, so the website is finally done. They did a really good job with this. I couldn't do this. I'm just being honest. I don't know what happens if I make it bigger. Will it take the video part away? Can you guys still see it? Okay, yeah, you guys can still see it. So yeah, this is the website. Shout out to the guys at Ritual. They did this. They actually even got the video part in the background. I don't know how they did that. Again, I don't have these skills. So if you go to the website, you'll get the about section, etc. It looks better not when I'm sharing my screen because I don't want to zoom in too much because then some parts will look, but you guys can see what it looks like here, about. And then if you go down here, you can see it has my merchandise store. That's also on the YouTube channel, my Substack, my Patreon. Those are links for those. And then it also has awards. So Women in Media, that's when I got the Women in Media Award in 2022. That was from the Women Institute for Freedom of Press. That was in DC. Community organizing. So there's information about that, which we talked about earlier tonight. And then on the ground coverage, which I'm going to try to be doing pretty soon again, actually. It just talks about events that I've covered on the ground. Assange, I believe this was, which one was this? Ukraine protest. I just know it was really cold that day. This was Palestine, I believe, on the ground coverage. And then videos, they just, repopulate here as they're released on YouTube. So they just will post down there as well. Again, I think they did a good job. And then you can find links down here as well. And then if you wanted to contact, then you can just hit contact, fill out the form here, and that info will get right to me. And if you want to join and be a part of the Team Zo, that'll take you right over to my Substack. So yeah, fam. So that is all set and done. I believe it should be linked to my YouTube channel now. I think I did that earlier today, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, that's all set. That's good to go. And we are about to head on out. I will do call in Thursday because I think number one, I have an appointment tomorrow morning. But number two, I think you're going to want to do it Thursday, considering what we're going to discuss. So we'll do it Thursday and we're going to do it through Zoom. Like I said, I think Zoom is going to be a lot better just because you just click on the link. And if you want to speak, you just unmute yourself, raise your hand. Like it's just easier, I think. So yeah, and then we'll have to worry about people not being able to get in a call-in queue or anything like that. People can just do their damn thing. Shout out to Terry Hinton, who's a part of the Boston chapter here. What's up, Terry? Meeting this Sunday. So Other than that, yeah. And maybe we can call it Zoom in. Zoom in. Right, Eric? Should we call it Zoom in? We could call it Zoom in. Sabby After Dark. I could call it that, Sabby After Dark. But yeah, that's it, guys. I'm off on Wednesdays, so I won't be here tomorrow. But I am actually going to be interviewing a challenger for Elizabeth Warren. Somebody is actually challenging Elizabeth Warren for her Senate seat, and they're actually running to the left of her through a third party. So I'm going to be recording an interview with him, and hopefully that should post Thursday afternoon. Other than that, guys, I am out of here. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.
Hello.
Oh, it didn't end. What happened? What did I do? I'm still here.